Hello everyone, welcome back to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 29th of May 2021. In this video, we'll be discussing this couple of issues. A fine balance in Nepal. This is about the repeated political crisis that is happening over the past 6 months in Nepal. What happened? The lower house of parliament has been dissolved at the recommendation of Prime Minister Oli, who is fighting a battle which he is losing. There is an internal strife within his own party. So, a look at the question it raises over the constitution of Nepal has actually caused a lot of debate in international circles as well, because this level of instability is not a hallmark of a good constitution. So, for prelims level, we have to understand the importance of fall of Nepal's government. You can look at it as the failure or the deficiencies in the parliamentary form of government, and we can understand the nuances of parliamentary form of government from our basic polity textbooks. But as far as mains is concerned, you have to understand the consequences of India-Nepal relations, and you have to analyze this issue from that angle. So, what is the issue here? This recommended dissolution of the House of Representatives, which is the lower house of the parliament, and approval by the president, shows that there are no checks and balances. So you can look at this issue from two angles: one, comparison of constitutions, and the other one is the international relations angle, that is India-Nepal relations. So what is this constitutional uncertainty that we're talking about? In Nepal, there was a grand unity where you can see that the Nepal Communist Party came together when all the left forces came together. So this constitutional uncertainty effectively ended this unity, which was forced among the left forces that had led to the creation of this grand Nepal Communist Party. So it plunged national politics into turmoil and the 5-year-old constitution into uncertainty, and raised questions about the haste with which the president approved Oli's recommendation. PM Oli took the step when he realized that a factional feud was happening within his own party and reached a point of no return. A dozen petitions have been filed in the Supreme Court challenging the dissolution, with 2 years left for the present house tenure almost 6 months ago. So each faction has also approached the election commission, claiming that it is the real party and Oli does not represent the entire party. Prime Minister Oli was a very fierce critic of the politics of violence. There was a Maoist insurgency in Nepal for a decade. From 1996 to 2006, we have had Prachanda, who led the Maoist insurgency for the 1 decade that we talked about. Thereafter, he joined mainstream politics and joined PM Oli. But Oli approached the Maoists only in 2017 for a merger between their parties, preempting the possibility of an alliance between Maoists and Nepali Congress. Actually, Oli was leading the Communist Party of Nepal, Unified Marxist-Leninist. And Prachanda was actually representing the Nepal Communist Party or Maoists. So, following the merger, the two leaders agreed that they would lead the government by turn. However, PM Oli did not honor at the end of his 2.5 years term, thus sowing the seeds of separation. Now, as a split appears inevitable, Oli is hoping to continue in power with those following him. So this raises questions over constitution. What has happened has left a question over the constitution of 2015 and its key features like federalism, secularism, the idea and conception of a republic. Already you can see popular protests even in the pandemic. The party is split with a 2/3 majority, raising concerns that it may lead to a systemic collapse. This dissolution of the house is not new in Nepal, but this is the first such instance after the 2015 constitution that places safeguards against dissolution. This new constitution does not envisage such a step without exploring the formation of alternative government. If you take a look at the 1991 constitution that existed before this one, which was scrapped in 2006, 1991 constitution had provisions for dissolution of parliament at PM's prerogative. Now, in a true democracy, that is definitely not acceptable. During the time it was in force, parliament was dissolved thrice. Did Nepal learn anything from its experience? So, if you take a look at the first parliament, which was elected in 1991 in Nepal, it was dissolved on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. At that particular point of time, G.P. Koirala was the Prime Minister. He failed to have a vote on thanks motion by the king passed in the House. And in 1995, the Supreme Court rejected the dissolution by Prime Minister. At that particular point of time in Nepal, the Prime Minister was Manmohan Adhikari. So at that particular point of time, this no trust motion had been tabled, but before the loss of majority was proved. So in this case, Supreme Court of Nepal held that executive did not have the right to snatch an issue under the consideration of legislature. So this is considered ultra vires. So considering this history, the opposition Nepali Congress and the Madheshi based Janata Samajwadi Party have reasons to hope that an early poll will earn them a bigger space in the parliament. But it fears that likely street protests and violence beside the onset of rains that were expected in April and even in early May. So these protests, the pandemic and the rains, they feared that they could be used as an excuse to further defer the election. Just like they feared, again, KP Oli has persuaded President Vidya Devi Bhandari to dissolve the parliament again and call for fresh elections only in the month of November, delaying the inevitable election further. So, of course, the Supreme Court can step in and say that the dissolution of the parliament as unconstitutional according to the new constitution that was brought out in 2015. However, Supreme Court has not reacted on this particular issue. Now, this is the background of the issue. Now, let us come to the IR angle of our syllabus, that is India and Nepal relations. First of all, we have to understand the significance of Nepal for India. We know that Nepal lies in the middle of India's Himalayan frontiers, and along with Bhutan, it acts as northern borderland flanks and acts as a buffer state. So you can say that Nepal is a buffer state between any possible aggression from China. Nepal shares borders with almost 5 Indian states: Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Sikkim and Bihar. And with free movement of people and thereby acting as an important point of cultural and economic exchange, this is very crucial. However, the recent Kalapani issue, which we have discussed in previous editorial classes, this proved to be a low point. Even after the 2015, we have actually shut down supplies to Nepal following a political protest right after the devastating earthquake it faced. So ever since, we have seen a fluctuating tendency between the politicians of Nepal and India. What is the takeaway from all these experiences? On one hand, we are seeing the rising hand of China in Nepali politics. And on the other, there is a dichotomy of narrative. That is, either India is treated as a foe or India is now looked up as a friend. So this dichotomy of opinion cannot exist in diplomatic circles. It can happen in probably it can happen in citizens. Citizens can look at India as a foe or a friend depending on their perception. But as long as diplomatic relations are based on solid agreements, we are safe and sound. Because we understand that as much as we need Nepal, even Nepal needs us. Therefore, this diplomatic stance shall continue to remain only when we respect certain boundaries. We should not meddle with the internal politics of Nepal. Therefore, it is important to maintain a safe distance from the entire political spectrum. If you take a look at PM Oli's cynical response towards India and inclination towards China after he was elected in 2017, this is because of the aggressive perception that they had on India, that India is actually trying to play the role of a big brother dictating terms. We are not respecting the sovereignty. If Nepal feels so, there is every chance that the leaders of that particular time who are influential enough can deviate towards China, which is definitely antagonistic to India's interests. Therefore, it is important to maintain that fine balance where we encourage people to people links and cultural exchanges, considering the historical cultural exchanges that we have had with Nepal. That is the gist of this article. Why Lakshadweep administration proposals have upset locals. Recently, there was a draft Lakshadweep Development Authority Regulation 2021. It called for creation of LDA. And this is actually resented by the people of Lakshadweep. Now let us understand what this LDA is all about. It empowers the government identified as the administrator to constitute planning and development authorities under it to plan the development of an area as having obsolete development. That is, if the administrator of Lakshadweep feels that a particular infrastructural facility is outdated, he can sue more to take cognizance of the fact and take up a activity to develop it. The authority would be a body corporate. That is, LDA would be a body corporate with a government appointed chairman. Government appointed. Please note this. So there is absolutely no scope for democratic representatives, except for the fact that 3 expert government nominees beside 2 local authority representatives are given. Again, they are also government officials. So these authorities prepare some land maps, carry out some zonation of land type, and again, if the people want to update, or if the government decides to update a particular infrastructural facility or a piece of land, people have to pay up money to process the zone charges. We're talking about zoning, as we've just discussed. The administration will create different zones and carry out various activities like engineering, mining, quarrying, etc. And locals were actually forced to pay fees for this. That is one reason why they are not happy. The second one is that the government actually wanted to propose a beef ban. Considering the fact that 94% of the population is ST population and Muslim population, this has caused a huge outcry. Again, there was another policy called the 2-child policy, where if the Gram Panchayat contestants have more than 2 children, they are debarred from elections. Again, coming back to the local customs and the fact that 94% population are ST and Muslim, the serving of liquor to tourists to encourage tourism again did not go well with the locals because it is against their customs. Another one is anti-gunda regulation, which is very arbitrary. The Lakshadweep Prevention of Antisocial Activities Regulation proposed that the local authorities can detain any person. So this is again very arbitrary and is a severe constraint placed on human rights. Originally, as per the protocols of COVID-19 to avoid any infections within the islands, there was a mandatory quarantine protocol at Kochi. Only after they were quarantined for a particular piece of time, then they can bring in outsiders. Even that was diluted for the sake of tourism money, and the RT-PCR certificate issued in the previous 48 hours could travel to Lakshadweep according to the original protocol. That was also diluted. So this led to an increase of nearly 7,300 cases and 28 deaths. Again, this is a mismanagement and misgovernance. So for all these reasons, the Lakshadweep administration proposals have upset the locals. That is the gist of this article.